Okay, welcome back to another video. I hope you're all doing okay in your quarantine. This week it's an absolutely beautiful day. I was going to go out and do a ride video, but then some news dropped about what's going on legalization wise, and I just had to do a video, address it, tell you what's going on and what you can do. So the DFT, the Department for Transport in the UK, are doing a Future of Transport Regulatory Review, a call for evidence. So this has the potential to legalise some or all PLEV. So I want to go over kind of what has happened, what is happening, and how you can have your say on what happens in the future. For some of you this might be quite a sort of dry topic. I'll try and get through it as quickly as I can, address all the points that I want to address, but do pay attention, it does affect you. This review will have the impact on what happens for legalisation of electric skateboards, electric unicycles, yeah, everything across the board, scooters, all of that. So yeah, bear with me, sorry, this is not as fun as going for a ride. For years we've been riding with no problems, until the scooters came along and events around scooters. This has brought the spotlight onto all PLEV, and since then obviously some of you, some of us I should say, have been having certain issues. This led to the police in error classing everything as a motor vehicle, and we've seen so many people being stopped, scooters being confiscated, electric skateboarders being stopped. I've seen one-wheelers trying to get police trying to give them fines. This review hopefully wipes all of that out and makes everything now a legal form of transport. So what's been happening? Ridables.org have been working behind the scenes to promote safe, responsible PLEV use. They've been educating ministers, and they've been to the House of Lords showing people some PLEV, explaining the different kinds and really bringing them up onto speed about what's happening in the scene. As you can imagine, members of parliament, they just sort of see the news, they see scooters, they think something needs to be done about this, needs to be regulated, and it's ridables.org have been kind of approaching them and demonstrating and educating them on all forms of electric transport and explaining the differences between them and how they can benefit society and urban mobility. So we've seen scooter trials happening here in London in Olympic Park. They've been running for quite a few months now, no problems. People have been able to hire them by the phone app and then ride around Olympic Park, which is classed as private ground. We've also seen scooter shops opening up in London already, and probably other cities around the country. Also pressure being added by scooter companies. This may or may not be a good thing. We've seen scooter rental companies approaching TfL and hassling them quite a lot. TfL saying this has nothing to do with us, passing them on to DFT, and these companies are then being putting pressure on DFT. Scooter rental companies, different ball game. What I'm really interested in looking at is responsible ownership of PLEV, not something like a dockless system. So what is happening at the moment? After DFT a while ago put out a paper, I think it was called the Future of Urban Mobility, the header image on this was a huge cycle lane. It looked like they'd taken over an entire lane of a road, painted it blue like a cycle lane, and this lane was filled with a variety of micro-mobility vehicles. And at this point I think they had to admit that PLEV really is the future of urban mobility. They kind of backed themselves into a corner by presenting this paper filled with images of different vehicles. So PLEV obviously solves a lot of the problems that we are facing with urban mobility in cities like London. Hence the call for the Future of Transport Regulatory Review, a call for evidence where they will look at certain things. So I have the list in front of me. Here is 5 sections. 1, you fill in a couple of details about yourself. Part 2 is micro mobility. This is the section that's going to affect us. 3 is buses, taxis and private hire vehicles. 4 is mobility as a service, and 5 is wider issues. So I'll go over a couple of these points and why they are really important. So here is how you can have your say. Being a call for evidence, they're asking for feedback on the topics covered and for any evidence and supporting arguments. So the main section again is section 2, is micro mobility. This is asking for feedback on all PLEV and will influence certain potential restrictions. a few of which I've made some notes on here, so you have to forgive me while I read through them. So the first issue is speed. We could get the same rules as power assisted electric cycles. Having these rules applied to us would give us a speed limit of a maximum of approximately 15 miles an hour. But unlike a pedal cycle, we can't then pedal to boost our speed. We are purely limited by the motors. Having this applied to us doesn't really fit. I think for electric skateboards we probably need a little bit more speed. It's fine cruising in a cycle lane 50 miles an hour, but if you're riding on the road you might potentially want a bit more speed to keep up with the flow of traffic. The second is road and or cycle lane use. So both of these are being looked at and we really need to be allowed on both. Ideally cycle lanes for inner cities and then road use where there is no other option. Pavement use is also being looked at, but it's not ideal. We may be able to implement some kind of structure where you have a slow mode and you switch it down to something like 7 miles an hour and you're allowed to just coast on a pavement. This would make sense if you're, say, next to an incredibly busy road, a dual carriageway, something like that. You just want to flick onto slow mode, jump onto the pavement and just roll along where you're not causing kind of any upset to foot pedestrians. The third concern is restrictions. This would be something like the wattage allowance of your motors. So unlike an e-bike where a big 250 watt motor could propel the bike to 50 miles an hour, with something like an electric skateboard you need two small 1500 watt motors to achieve similar kind of speeds. So limiting a board or any kind of PLEV device by watts isn't going to work for us. It could potentially wipe out certain forms of transport just by having one erroneous piece of legislation. The next concern is classification. Somewhere from no regulation whatsoever to some kind of motor vehicle regulation and various places in between. I wouldn't like to see a license category, but I'm not opposed to people having some kind of competency test before they ride their PLEV. There's no need for something like an MOT and registration. There is an e-bike like category which is a happy medium, which has common sense rules applied. I would like to see PLEV fall into this. So perhaps this would be something like a minimum age to ride electric skateboard on the road. Helmets are recommended, not enforced like they are with cycles. Obviously it would be great to see everyone in helmets and pads. They might implement something like lighting and the ability to indicate either with lights or with your arms. There is one concern listed here, which is how they worded it. It might be something like a handlebar is required, which then means only electric scooters, and it wipes out electric skateboards, unicycles, one wheels, all that kind of stuff. So do have a read through, have a look at all of these potential restrictions, do address them how you see fit and how they potentially affect you as a rider. Do give any supporting evidence for how you think things should go, why some of these restrictions shouldn't be in place, why you think perhaps we shouldn't be restricted like a motor vehicle but perhaps should fall into a category like a power assisted bicycle. So have a read through, see what's being proposed and put across encouraging and supporting points. Remember, what you say and perhaps how you say it will have an effect and influence over future plans. So please do be supportive, do be encouraging, put your arguments across in a way that's supportive and polite. What you say now can and will have an effect on the future of electric skateboarding in public, on roads, cycle lanes, etc. Also, parts 3 and 4 don't affect us too much. Do have a look through section 5, which is wider issues. There may be a few things you want to comment on in here. For example, allowing local authorities to manage transport innovation may be a good thing if you have an area that is pro PLEV. This could be a bad idea if it's in the hands of something like TfL, which have a stranglehold on transport in London. This is not something against TfL. They obviously have a hard job managing the buses, the tubes and everything that happens They also run the Boris Bike scheme, but PEV will take customers off the tube, they will take customers off the buses, they will stop people riding Boris bikes so much because they will have their own transport. Other points you might want to raise are things like the impact on air quality. So 10,000 people a year in London die due to dirty air. Congestion, traffic speeds in central London are approximately 5 miles an hour. I think this might have dropped a little bit since the last study. You have the freedom to travel whenever you want. And most importantly, things like current affairs, coronavirus is making it impossible to use public transport at the moment. Not just impossible, but actually potentially dangerous and deadly to use public transport. So then in situations like this, PEV is a brilliant mode of transport. People can still get to work, people can still run errands, go shopping. This review is live now and is open until May the 22nd. You have your chance to make a difference and help promote PEV use for the future. Please take your time, think about your answers and make a strong case for using your skateboard on a daily basis. Hopefully, if enough people fill this in and present some very good, strong arguments for PEV use, we can look at being regulated and legalised very soon, and we can all get back out on our boards happily and legally. This will make a massive impact, not just on the transport, PEV scene. Electric skateboard group rides, being able to legally ride around, is going to be absolutely amazing. So I will put a link to the consultation in the description. Click on the link, check it out, read through it, make your arguments. Please do have a positive impact on electric skateboarding's future. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.